Hi, my name is Peter Hattlestead. Tonight I'm going to show you how to use Excel with tabular model using something called PowerPivot. Um, One of the more recent enhancements that Microsoft added to Excel lately is something called PowerPivot. It's part of the Power BI approach of Microsoft, where they're putting business intelligence tools into some of their own um, other legacy applications like Excel and um, uh, PowerPoint and Power Graph, Power Query. Um, when they say the word power anything, when they talk about like Power Pivot, the power really is coming from what they call the tabular model. But tonight I'm going to show you how to use Power Pivot with a tabular model and how to first install it, and then first explain to you why you'd even want to think about doing this. Power Pivot is an enhancement that they added to Excel. It added a lot of power to Excel in the fact that it can handle millions of rows. Um, it can also, not just millions of rows, but millions of rows in memory. What that means to you when you're using Excel is that you're going to experience being able to aggregate millions of rows. And since the data is loaded in memory, the aggregations are just going to fly. They'll be like they've been pre-calculated. Anytime you do memory calculations on a computer, they're extremely fast. In this demonstration, you'll see how quick Power Pivot is with relatively large tables. But that's one of the main reasons of using it. But Power Pivot is basically a great way of looking at a long list of data and being able to slice and dice it and figure out what's going on inside with that data, other than just giving a total and some general statistic type information. It's a way to dig and tear into that data and look at it geographically with Power Graph too. So I'm going to show you those things, and I'm going to show you how, first of all, to get going with this, we got to get this here thing set on your machine if you haven't got it already. And basically what I'm talking about here is getting Power Pivot turned on in the ribbon. Okay, so how do you do that? If you have Excel 2010, you have to download an add-on to Excel that's free from Microsoft. It's on their site, their download site. It's called the Power Pivot add-on. You download it after it gets to your machine, gives you an option to run it, and actually installs it into Excel 2010. If you have Excel 2013, it's bundled already into Excel 2013, and all you have to do is turn it on. Bear in mind that Power Pivot between 2010 and 2013 did get changed a little bit. It still works very much the same way, but there were some enhancements in 2013 that made it a little bit different or a little bit nicer to use, but they both are very functional. So I'm going to show you first of all what you do. You go to turn it on in Excel, you would go File, you go to Options, then you go down to Add-ins, then you go down on the bottom of the screen, there's a drop down, and you click on COM Add-ins, and you click Go, and then a COM in Add-ins pop-up is going to come up, and be sure to select the option that says Excel Power Pivot for Excel and then the year of your Office product. It'll say 2010 or 2013. And then click OK. And then after that is done, you should see up on the top on your ribbon bar, you'll see something that says Power Pivot. That's all there is to installing it. You don't have to buy anything. If you already own Excel 2010 or 2013, it's free. Okay? The next step after you've got Power Pivot turned on your Excel, the next step is to go click on Power Pivot. And then once you click on Power Pivot, you get a whole new ribbon. And on this ribbon, way on the left side, there's a button. It's green, it's kind of square, and it says Manage Data Model. And that's what the big difference between anything else I've seen in Excel, other add-ons, excuse me, is when you click this button, you'll notice that Excel starts to work. And not only does it work, it loads up another pane or another frame or a form. This form is the form that's used for managing the model. This form is the one that's used for managing the Excel. Realize when you look down here in the taskbar, you'll have two things you can click on. You click on either the Power Pivot for the model or the Excel. Just remember that. If you need to get between one and the other, that's how you do it. The very first thing we have to do is we've got to get data into this model. So we'll be in this here one right here. It has a little green square on the top. Actually, it's really similar to what you'd see in Analysis Services Tabular instance if you had it installed in your machine. In fact, it's kind of a subset of it that actually got put into Excel. So after we've got this open, we need to add some data. And we can add data from all kinds of places. But I'm going to show you tonight is I'm going to show you how to pull it in from SQL Server. So you click from database, from SQL Server. See, I could put it from Access, or I could pull it from all kinds of places. But I'm going to pull it from SQL Server. Okay, the next thing we need to do is find a server to pull it from. I don't remember my server names. I'll just let this thing give me a list. Okay, there's a server that I can use. And I'm going to pull a database in. I'm going to pull the AdventureWorks Data Warehouse 2012. Okay, I'll test this connection. It should work fine. It's on my local machine next. The next option is to say you want to take a list of tables, or do you want to build a query, build your own. I'm going to do it the easy way. I'm going to let it look in that database and give me a list of tables I can pull. There it did. Okay, so it gave me a list of tables that are in that database, and it just so happens that I want to go based on, I'm going to search through that table, that database, and I want to look at fact tables. Fact tables are different from dim tables in the fact that fact actually have measures in them that you might want to measure, or something you want to aggregate in some fashion. Dimension tables are kind of like the where statements in a SQL statement. You know, you want to aggregate things by date. You might want to add it by reseller. You might want to by sales territory, those things. But I'm going to select fact internet sales, and one of the nice features of Excel and Microsoft is if that database has got foreign primary key constraints implemented on it, and which their data warehouse example that I downloaded does, if I select this select related tables button, it will go out to that database and find all the tables that are related to this here particular fact this fact internet sales table. So I select that. It's going to go out there and look, and it's going to pick all the tables that are related. So I go through here and I see you got a currency, customer, date, product, promotion. I really don't care to look at all this stuff, but I'm just going to show it to you so you can see what a star stable or a star data warehouse would look like. That's kind of a traditional OLAP data warehouse structure. So I'm going to select yes and finish. And it's going to pull all those tables in, and it's also going to pull in the relationships between them because it found them when it looked, and now it's going to come up and it's going to load that data physically into this model on Excel on this here PC. So right now it's pulling them all in, and we had a success, pulled it all in from SQL Server. Nice green checks. No huge numbers here like 60,000. That's not a lot of records at all for Excel. Especially a 64-bit. I pulled in as many as 2 million rows in on this here particular PC with Excel 2013 with a 64-bit version of Excel on it. So I'm going to click OK and close, or I should say close. And what I'll get back is to here's my model that I'm managing, and here's the Excel. In the model, I've got all these tables that it pulled over, as you can see down here on the bottom. Okay, one of the very first things that you'll always do if you're working with a data warehouse and it has a dim date is you have to assign, or a good thing to do is to assign what table is the date table or the dim date. It's kind of a special table. Reason special is because Microsoft has developed a lot of inbuilt functions that are based on date. So for example, quarter to date, year to date, month to date type of functions that are basically date driven functions. So if I select dim date and I go up here and I say mark as date table, that's probably one of the more important things you need to do if you want to use those functions. Don't necessarily have to. The other thing I'm going to do in this dim date table is I really do like to demonstrate or to build pivot tables that have month names instead of month numbers. So when I sort by month, I want to have the month I want month to be sorted. Okay, I'm going to by the month number, not the month name. I want it to sort not alphabetically, but by the number of the month. So for example, I'm going to change month to month number of the year. And I'm going to click OK. And I'm going to do the same thing with day. I like to sort by Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, but I like to have it sort not by alphabetically, but by the day of the year again. So I click this, I click sort, and I click day number of the week. And you'll see later in the demonstration why that's kind of important. All these other tables, I could do a lot of things. I could add calculated columns or explicit measures in them. That might save for another demonstration. But anyway, we've got kind of the crux of the model pretty much defined. And fortunately, since the database developer that built this data warehouse, they did a lot of work, and they basically put the joins and the foreign key, primary key constraints of the tables. It made our work real easy of pulling this in. Another neat feature of this here modeling tool is you can go into the diagram design and you can actually see how the tables fit together. So right now it's going to go out to those tables and it's going to look, and you'll see all how the tables are joined together. And you can see these here basically are tables that have joins that are equijoins. Realize that at this point in time, PowerPivot doesn't work well with outer joins. It works well with an equijoin of some sort. This needs to join to something. This needs to join to something here. It can't join. It has to join to something that actually touches these tables, or you'll have columns that are being omitted. That's just something to be careful of. Not columns, rows that don't get aggregated correctly. So anyway, here's your diagram view, the joins. What I like about it in particular is how it does a nice job of. Let's see if I can get. Oh. All right, it should show you, or it should highlight. I don't know where this here field's at. Sales territory. I should be able to see it. Now you can see the two fields that are associated in that table. If you want to change it, you double click on this. It comes up with a nice dialog box. But you realize there's only one kind of join. It's just an equijoin. There's no outer join. Also realize you can specify which ones are the active join for that at this point in time. So if you have tables like this one, you can see that there's only one table. There's one table. It's based by territory. Key is joined to date key. So just realize that this here is the active join, and these here two are not active. No, is that right though? Let's go look here. Dim date, date key, back to internet sales, dim date. Okay, here's a table, order date key. Okay, so it's by order date and date key is that join, and that's the one that's active. So anyway, we've got our tables loaded out there. We've got, I showed you a little bit briefly about doing things in the model as far as setting your date and that type of thing. So once we've got this here out there, we can select between these views by these up here. This is probably the one that's probably more nicer to use than that one, but this shows you how the tables fit together, and this shows you the date of each one. One thing that you often will do is you may not care to keep things like fields that you don't use. And the reason you don't find of interest are because they eat up space and memory, and you're basically, all this stuff is in memory. So if you're keeping columns that you don't ever use, you're just wasting memory, and you're hurting the resources, or reducing your resources in this tool. In this case, this model is relatively small, so it doesn't matter anyway. So anyway, I'm going to close this down. And here's my spreadsheet. I got to go back to manage again. One thing I need to do here is I need to go to home, and I want to build a pivot table. and I want to build a pivot table back here, and I want to show you how I go about doing it. So right now it's creating a new pivot table. These are all the tables that I've got in my model. Here's the selecting and where they get put, columns, rows, how they get, these are the measurements. So for example, let's pick what we're going to measure first. And I'm going to measure something simple like sales amount. Okay, so sales amount. So the sales amount, total sales is whatever this number is. 2 billion something, okay? All right, that's the total sales. We also want to do some things here like, let's go break this down by year, calendar year. And I want this calendar year be in rows, and I want month. I'm looking for month name, English month name. Okay, notice they're not alphabetically, they're in the right order. And then we might want to add in day of the week, day of the month. Hopefully that'll go there. No, it's stuck in the wrong place. I want to make sure that gets there. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take these here, and I'm going to collapse entire field. So you can see that, here we go. That's by month. Okay, so if I want to look at this, I see I've got January through July of 2008, and from 2005 before I don't have anything. So I'm going to shrink these down. That's some interesting things to know. Okay, so I've got that. What else might I want to put on the top here? Like would be across the column. Break it out by, let's see here. What do I got here? I got customer. We want to understand our customers. Let's try it going. I think total number of children is kind of interesting. But total number of children got stuck some weird place. Yeah, we got it down here. I don't want it there. I want it across the top. So by year, I've got this. But maybe let's just, well, we try that. I'm going to try something totally different. Let's go this way. Okay. All right, so those are the number of children. These are by, I want to expand, I want to collapse this here thing. So because it goes way too far out that way. Yeah. Let's go back the other way. I changed my mind. So we'll put this back. So you've got changing the column rows and around. Okay, so back this way, total children up on the top. Anyway, you get a kind of a clue of how you move things around in the pivot table in this here chart. So I've got that done. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to shut this field list off, and I just do that by doing that. Now how do I get the field list back? I can click on here, right click on here, and I'll show field list, and it comes back. It took me a year to learn how to do that. That's quite a trick, you know? But that's how you get this back once it's gone. The other thing I want to show you here is I'm going to click on this. When you click on the pivot table, you also get these PowerPivot tools. Analyze, some things I'd like to add in here are a slicer. And I'd like to add a slicer by customer. What do I have? I got it by date, or no, total number of children, don't I? That's a slicer. It's kind of interesting. Let's close this one down. Date, I'd like to have it by year, calendar year, month name, day number of a month. So I'm adding a whole bunch of slicers here. Okay. And something I want to kind of do also is I want to show you what these slicers kind of work like. Okay, so day, month, number of month, here we go. So these are kind of the year, a year, month, day. Okay, so say for example for 2005, what that did is, I didn't show you very well here, but let's collapse the entire field. Okay, so for 2005, that's what came in. Okay, if I want to look at 2006, there's 2006 data. If I want to look at 2000, 6 and 7, I hold down the control key, and I get both of those picked. If I want to look at the number of children, and I want to reduce the size and say I want to look at people that have 0 to 2 children, there you go. One other thing I want to show you here is in the design is these total columns. I'm going to take that off. Subtotals, I can shut those off if I want. So there's your basic numbers. Subtotals are kind of nice. Sometimes you want to have them on. But I just want to show you how to take them off and turn them on. The other thing that's really nice is the design. You've got all kinds of nice templates in here. So I kind of like this one. Basically, that's a nice template. You can drill into this. One other feature that I think you'll really like to have is in here is, let's click on this. Let's go to Analyze, and let's add a pivot chart. I'm going to pick a really simple design here, a column. We're going to click that. Here we go. Here's a chart. Okay, now chart's got a little bit too much stuff. Let's just go to 1 year. A little bit easier to look at. And then we'll reduce our number of children down to 0 kids. There's your sales, okay, for 1 to 5 kids. There's your chart. You want to make your chart bigger. You just, size it that way, however you like. One nice thing about the chart is you've got all kinds of neat options. You can add titles. You can add data labels. It gets kind of busy. Data labels, this would look okay if you did like that. And then go in here and go, okay, they pick data labels. Okay, now try data. You could read that maybe. It gets kind of busy. It depends on how much room you have for the chart. Like for example, let's go and stretch it out a little bit. Now you can see the numbers and maybe do more like that. You might be able to read it, but sometimes it just gets too close to each other. So anyway, you have to play with things a little bit. Trend line, that's kind of nice to see. But what I really want to show you is the neat thing about this here chart and that pivot table. Daggone, is there? Anyway, I'm going to pick. I want to show you is that how this changes, the graph changes. So we had 2 children in there. I'm going to get rid of those data labels. Trend line on 0. So as we add more children, for example, the chart changes dynamically. If we were to pick a different year, here it is. One thing that's really interesting, if we go to 2005, we see something that's kind of odd. Well, maybe not. No, maybe not. 2005, we've only got data for part of the year, but there's one of the values in 2005 that's really skewed high, so it makes the graph look weird, but not apparently with the columns we're looking at. There we go. One nice thing I like it. One other thing I like to notice about these slicers is that as you look over here, you see that 2006 I've got 12 months out of the year. 2005 I've got 6 months that show up and a whole bunch of months that are kind of grayed out. Well, it goes out to the data and it determines that there really aren't options, so it doesn't give you that. Day of the month, it always gives that. So for example, if I pick the 31st, we shouldn't see any Februaries. And we only have months that have 31st in them. Okay. Or if you want to look at a certain range of months, hold the shift key down, or days. There's a lot of things you can do with these slicers. As you can see, they're very fast in how they work. They make dealing with this data really nice. Now, one other thing that I haven't showed you yet is that one of the other things that auditors really like is they often make a pivot chart like this and a pivot table. But how do you get the supporting data for this 447,737.90? Okay, and let's say you break this into day, and this thing down here will display days too. See the graph and the graph and the pivot table follow each other. But say for the second, you want to see how you got for 0 children how this added up. what's the raw data. I double click on it, and here's the raw data for that. It made me a whole brand new spreadsheet. I really don't care to keep the spreadsheet, so I'm going to delete it. But that's my graph. I'm going to change my I'm changing my selection, and I'm going to basically close that so my graph comes back and looks normal again. But I just wanted to show you how very functional this tool is, especially you notice how fast things go. And you know what? Even when you add 100,000s or a million rows to this thing happens really fast. The other comment I want to show you is how to remove filters. When you see an X like this, you know it's filtered. You click that, and you'll get all your years back, or should get all your years back. Total children 3. Where's my chart on top of it? You know what? My chart's on top of the data, so that why it didn't show up. But it's sitting there. You have to move the chart around. It's too much data for this here graph, so let's just delete it. Adding a graph's really easy. You just click right there, click on the pivot table, click up on Analyze, and there's your power chart. Click that. It's going to ask you what kind of chart, and it'll add it to the graph. It'll add it to this here sheet or a separate sheet. Realize that the graph is dynamic to the pivot table. So anyway, this is a real quick demonstration of how to use power pivots, why somebody would want to use them, and where there'd be a lot of value in them. What I see a lot of value in the fact is that you can look at the data and you can look and slice and dice without a lot of effort. And you've got, for example, here, you can drill into this by day. You can drill into the detail. I mean, do you see how quick that was? I mean, it was just lightning fast. But that's kind of the crux of my demo. I appreciate you listening to what I had to say, and maybe you can find a value for it in the organization. Thank you for your time.